that in everything we do, we serve you first, and thereafter the people of our nation. Help us to be guided by kind and true thoughts and deeds, and that all we do will endure to the benefit of the people of our country. We ask for traveling mercies for those who are coming, and keep us all safe. We ask these and all your other mercies in your name. Amen.
Thank you. All right, members, any apologies for absence? Member Williams, okay. Be late. Okay. Yeah, he's at the function. Okay, excellent. All right. Members, we have a little housekeeping. Could I, if members have had the chance to look at the minutes of the meeting held on January the 17th, or sent out, I would ask if there are any corrections. If there are no corrections, would somebody move for confirmation? All right, and seconded by Member Stewart. The report for the last two meetings, which would have been the meeting with the Ministry of National Security and then the meeting of the Ministry of Finance and Public Service and Customs. A report was done on those meetings. If members have had a chance to see the report, I would ask that we move for approval of the report. So moved. Seconded, Member Stewart. Okay. All right, members, with regard to that, I would like to, we had asked the Ministry of National Security to give us an update on the proceedings. Members would have received copies of a letter. I'd like to read them into the records. This letter is from the Ministry of National Security under the signature of the Permanent Secretary, Ms. Diane McIntosh, and it is read the procurement of vehicles for the Jamaica Constabulary Force / contract with O'Brien's International Car Sales and Rental Limited. Reference is made to the caption. Please note that the Ministry is now in receipt of the payment of the performance bond. A deposit of $42,700,000 was deposited in the Ministry's account today, January 26, 2018. Sincerely. So the performance bond has been received by the Ministry of National Security. Members, I would ask the clerk, just in following up on that they had indicated that they had made the call on the performance bond and on the bond for advance payment. The question that I think we need to just follow up is, what does it mean now that we have received the performance bond? What does that mean? In other words, does it mean that the contract is now null and void? Where are they at? There must be some, I know we have the legal minds here, but there must be some implication of that. And we would, I think, need to ask what it means now that the performance bond has been received. The second question that I would ask the clerk to ask is, having received the performance bond, why haven't they received the bond for the advance payment? And well, why have they not received it, and have they gotten a reply from the bondholders? If they haven't paid it, why have they not paid it? So I think it would be a question that we would ask.
That is for the advance
payment bond, because I suspect they go hand in hand. So we would ask national security that question. Members, there's something that has concerned me about this. When national security was here, we had a discussion, and there was something that concerned me at the time. The Ministry indicated of National Security that they had, on the 66 vehicles, the last shipment, if members will remember, there was a 30 vehicles that had come, then 66, taking it to 96, and then I think they were to get another 4 vehicles. So that would be half of the total. What was, so they were supposed to get 200 vehicles, that would be the first 100 vehicles. The cost of the 200 vehicles was estimated at 429 million. They had indicated that there was a variation on the 66 vehicles, just the 66. And that variation, they had estimated the cost of those 66 vehicles to be 109 million, if memory serves me correctly. But that there was an additional, I think it was over 40 million, that was now estimated. It was either 40 or 45, I can't remember the exact amount, or 42 or 43. They had indicated that they were inclined to pay the additional cost, the variation, because they were allowed, on the 200 vehicles, they were allowed a 10% variation. So on the 420 million, they could give a variation of 42 million. It concerns me, and I think that we should ask the Ministry of National Security to seek advice from the Attorney General, because I don't know how you can apply a variation on 66 vehicles that is meant for variation on 200 vehicles. So in other words, the 66 vehicles, which is going to cost 40-odd million more, is now going to be an increase in cost of 30% on those vehicles. But you're going to apply the whole $42 million that you had for the 200 vehicles on the 66. To me, it does not go to the spirit of what the contract meant, and I think that the ministry is sort of pushing the boundaries. And I think just looking at the contract, some legal advice could be sought, and the committee would be well within its mandate, just to find out if we are, or if the ministry is proceeding in the on solid legal grounds.
But this is also amplified, Chairman, in light that the ministry had mentioned that they are going to be cancelling the rest of the contract, but yet still applying that the ceiling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Member Phillips, in other words, if the contract was really for the 100 vehicles, which was going to cost 210 million, then the variation in that case, even for that 100, would be 21 million. So now to apply it to the 66 seems to me to be stretching the boundaries of what is necessary. So I think that the clerk, I think as a committee, we should ask them to just clarify that position.
Mr. Chair, I understand your concern, but I was just looking at the issue of the 10% variation on the 420-odd million. I was wondering if during the arrangement, the contractual arrangement, if there was a contemplation at that time of the issue that would have arisen subsequently in relation to the change in year and make. That too could have had some impact in relation to their considering to accept the
that's the point I'm making.
Right.
Within it, they were allowed a 10% variation.
No, I'm just asking
on the
if
total
maybe,
contract to deal with issues of this nature.
that's what I'm asking, if that was
Yes.
being contemplated at the time, the change in models and so on and so forth,
Yeah.
which
But
I don't think.
I'm just saying, it was contemplated, but I'm just saying, if you're dealing with half of the contract, 100 cars, to apply 42 million to the 100 cars, or even in worst case, in this case, to 66 vehicles, I'm just saying, out of an abundance of caution,
Chairman.
let us seek to ask the Attorney General.
Well,
I have to partially agree with member, as well as sort of summarize a concern. The contract had specific years for the vehicles, so the contract did not conceptualize younger vehicles, and therefore would not have conceptualized that the variation would have been for younger vehicles. That variation, from an abundance of practicality, one would expect to have been on the same year vehicle contracted, but giving some 10% leeway. What we have observed is they have moved far out of that by choosing to take much younger vehicles, which, as we said at the last meeting, it is like deciding you want Gros Michel bananas and deciding you're going to accept planting or bumpy. So it makes it very difficult, because though there are cars that are 2 years younger, 3 years younger, are different animals.
Yeah, but contracts are structured in a specific way for a reason, because part of the problem you're facing is that the other persons who would have tendered did not have a chance to tender for younger vehicles. They tendered as the contract was, and then mid-contract, the dealer decided he couldn't supply that, so he supplied something else. Government has had to end up paying more. I'm just saying that the amount more that they're paying is subject to discretion and is governed by the rules of the contract. And I'm just saying, what they had indicated to us is that they were allowed a 10% variation.
We want to add one more question, Chairman, if that's okay. In addition, would the ministry explain to us where do we go from here in terms of the remaining cars? That is a big question for us.
So you're
because in answering these questions, they should also come prepared in terms of the time frame, in terms of the outstanding numbers of vehicles, and how soon and what is the arrangement.
Because they had indicated to us, Member Holness, that they had sought voluntary cancellation of the contract, but that the dealer had indicated that they were not so inclined. Now, with the calling of the performance bond, with us finding out what is going to happen with the advance payment bond, we need to keep abreast of, and so your question becomes relevant as to what the situation is.
A quick question here. As it relates to the variation, did the company, O'Brien Car Rental, did they have any dialogue with the Ministry of National Security before they went on this new deal to get newer cars? Did they have any discussion? Is there anything that speaks to that?
Well,
or did they take that unilateral decision?
Certainly, that would be a relevant question as well. All right, members, the last thing that, and this is something in response to our meeting last week, the Minister of Finance indicated that he had signed both waivers, and that he indicated that constitutionally he is allowed to sign these waivers, and basically he said, if memory serves me correctly, and I say this advisedly, that himself and the Prime Minister have the ability constitutionally. Now, one of the questions that comes to me is that we as an oversight committee, this has come to us because of the contract for the used cars. But it has, I think that statement has given me a bit of disquiet. And I think as a committee, I would like us to seek, I would seek to ask the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Finance to give us a list of waivers and moratorium issued for the financial year. My understanding, these things are part of the agreement that we have with the IMF and are made publicly, but I think that we would be well within our right, and I think our duty to ask the Ministry of Finance for all waivers, moratoria issued for this financial year that we're in, and to whom, and the justification. Because I think what has come to me out of this is that while there are ministers of government who have a constitutional right to do things, for it to be done in a proper manner, it must have justifications built in. It can't just be discretion. And I think that that sort of information our Parliament would want to know, and we could put it in front of the Parliament.
If I might just, Chairman, on that note, say that the overriding the greatest justification, and I have heard the Minister of Finance say it in public places, in printed press, his actions in granting that waiver was not a waiver in granting the right, was simply to address the situation of crime in this country and the urgency with which both sides of the aisle know that we have to deal with it. And as has been said, I mean, the PM made a statement in Parliament yesterday, and we all agreed that there is a calming nature coming to areas like St. James because of the efforts that have been placed in controlling crime. And I know you're saying that, Chairman, but you more than anybody else, well, certainly more than those of us on this side, have been in the seat of government for many years. And I'm sure it's not new to you that your Minister of Finance and your Prime Minister would have the constitutional right to do certain things. So when you say you're asking for all and the justification, it means for some reason your antennas have gone up, because this is not a new...
No, it came out of the statement that was made. And remember that under the agreement we have, there's a cap. So so that cap will be held. So it is certainly, I think, important for us to know what waivers have been given within the cap, or what waivers have been given, what moratorium have been given on payments, because remember, even if you're putting back a payment, in a sense, it's a debt to government. And these things could be put back, and some may actually end up with a waiver. It's almost like a deferred waiver. So, in a sense, until such time. So, the point I'm making is that I think it's important for us just to get from the Ministry of Finance, certainly those waivers and moratoria given. Our committee deals with the financial year in which we are operating and the justification.
But the moratoria is not a waiver.
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Minister of Finance said It is not a waiver.
Absolutely. We
Not
do
a-
understand that it is a deferring.
Chair.
Yes,
Chair.
and we are
It's a
object.
deferring of the.
Yes, and Chairman, we would also, as members of this committee, object to you registering that, because
No,
it
no,
has
no.
been said clearly that a moratorium is not a waiver, and we have to be careful, because you see, once it gets into the public press, and after this meeting, as I get into the car, it's the first thing I hear on the radio. The new 12 o'clock news carries it, and we have to be careful what it is that reaches out to the public. We just have to, and protect our own selves too, all of us at the same time, with what goes out there.
Let me add to that, Chairman. I would want us to take every opportunity to explain to citizens what a moratorium is as well, because we use certain terminologies that confuse the public. So a moratorium is a delay in the payment of your taxes. That's what you're requesting. And we were in a position, as the minister indicated, where you would have had a performance bond that would have been used to draw down in the event this individual came to a place and was not prepared to pay the taxes. The Ministry of National Security would have had in their hand, and I think also the public doesn't understand that when we say there's a bond, the money is not with O'Brien. The money is actually held, and the ministry is able to pull down on those funds, not the supplier of the cars. I think it is critical for us to ensure that that is understood.
Chair.
Member Phillips.
And the supplier can only draw down when he has fulfilled all the obligations.
Yes, Member Phillips.
Why I'm in agreement with you and why I too have the concern is in the two instances there was no formal request made by the Ministry of National Security on these moratoriums, but the liability was shifted to the Ministry of Finance. Now it begs the question on how many other transactions like this, even though it is a deferral of the taxes, but how many other transactions like this would have taken place within the Ministry of Finance and the government. That is where I have a real concern, because I too was taken aback when the Minister of Finance, when I heard the news clip where the Minister of Finance himself expressed that he had done it to expedite the process of getting these cars. The first set of cars were delivered somewhere in May, early last year.
June. Yeah.
The second set of cars have been sitting on the wharf since June last year, and we are in January 2018. And the cars are still not in the possession of the police. And I asked the question repeatedly, what is the difference with the urgency with the first 30 to the second shipment of 66? Crime, there's no abatement in the crime numbers between the delivery of the first set of cars and the 66 vehicles. But the fact that the Ministry of National Security said here in the committee meeting that they made no formal request for the second moratorium. The FS herself said that the moratorium was requested by O'Brien for the second set of vehicle, but yet still the liability was transferred to the Ministry of National Security. So, Chair, if it is that we're going to ask for a list of moratoriums and waivers
For the financial year.
for the financial year, I am open to that, because the truth is that if we do not have the confidence of the public that when we are issuing these, that they go to and are done in a way that is above board, then us as legislators would have been also deceiving the public.
All right. So members.
But Chairman, you have been a minister. May I just ask you a question? If there's in your period as being a minister, if you have a situation that's arising that crosses another minister, is it unusual? Is it that you could pick up the phone and say to your colleague minister, I have a problem in this department and it's an urgent situation. Is there can you fast track for us a situation that will ease the position? I just want to know if it is something that, as a senior minister of government, someone who has been a senior and someone who I have a lot of regard for, would do.
Member Dalrymple, and you're only asking me my estimation. I can only say to you that historically ministers of finance have been notoriously difficult when you're dealing with issues such as waivers.
A waiver, it's not a waiver. Yes, it's not a waiver.
And or moratoria on duties. But I'm just saying that what we're seeking here is just information. And I think that it's important just given where we're at. I don't think it's really an issue of much. I don't think we need to belabor it,
especially when the Minister of Agriculture has been out there now since 10 o'clock. So I really think it's time for us to bring them in.
Members, there's just one last thing. One last thing that I'd like. The role of a PAAC, Administration and Appropriations, is for us to sort of monitor operations of government to ensure that what is in the estimates of the estimates of expenditure remains true in the actual expenditure as the year progresses. If we are really effective, theoretically, a PAC would have very little work to do. Today, I saw in one of the papers when I was coming down an issue with motor vehicles. I'm sure members have seen it. An issue of motor vehicles purchased and 1 year and or money left over, etc., for the purchase of motor vehicles. And I think that, again, it is an issue that is often discussed. And I've seen things in the paper from time to time, but we at this committee level, we have a duty to inform the Parliament. And given what I saw, I thought it would be important to us just to get a note. I don't think that many motor vehicles are purchased. They're purchased for the police, for trucks for RAD, etc., But certainly, given the constraints we have, those purchased for ministers, those purchased for consultants, advisors, chairmen of boards, those things are of interest in general, given the expenditure. And I would also ask the clerk if they could get a list of those vehicles that have been purchased in the financial year for the committee, so that the committee is appraised, because we hear things bandied around and put in different areas, but we as a committee have not received any such report. So I would simply ask, motor vehicles purchased in this financial year, motor vehicles purchased this financial year that are assigned to the ministers, advisors, consultants / chairmen, not the vast majority. I'd seen something in the paper some weeks ago. I've seen the article that is now put, and what I would do, I use the word assigned. Those purchased and assigned, because as was said in the article, there are various agencies that purchase and assign, which has been done across the board. But I think there's a necessity to just be tidy and clear and transparent and open in all that we do. So
Chairman,
I would ask the clerk to.
Lastly, some questions, we had asked some questions of Ministry of Finance at the last meeting. The duties or taxes paid on the 4 vehicles that were delivered, and on the amount that they Commissioner of Customs, the 1.2 million.
We will ask that at the following next week with this information that we're requesting, which should be at their fingertips.
Yes,
we will
you
ask
will that.
them
Okay,
to
thank you.
bring. All right, members, if there's nothing else, we would ask the team, we'd ask the team from the Ministry of Agriculture to come. All right, members, with us today we have the team from the Ministry of Industry, Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries. There are two things that we had asked for. In November, if memory serves, October, November, we had a meeting with the ministry, and there was a report that was submitted, and we were where is it list? Oh, we had left on that report to have a discussion with the ministry on sugar transformation, the agri-parks, the 4-H, and some discussion on RADA. Subsequent to that, last week we met with the ministries of Works, well, Economic Growth and Job Creation, but NWA, and with the parish council, local government, and discussed the 2 billion additional funds. Some of those funds were turned over for farm roads. So last week we indicated to the Ministry of Agriculture that rather than have them come twice, we would let them come today, where we would deal with the farm road program as well as the report that had been issued. I'm going to suggest, members, that we allow the permanent secretary to give his remarks, introduce his team, and then after that, we would indicate we would have RADA do the road program first. I think, members, seeing as we had done that last week, and it would be a good continuation. And then after that, we will then go into the report and deal with sugar transformation, agri-parks, and with the 4-H.
But Chair, did we just go through RADA itself outside of the road program? We haven't. So since we're going to take RADA, we'll just take RADA as a whole, inclusive of the road program.
We had sugar transformation, RADA, agri-parks, 4-H.
Yeah, but you say you're going to take the RADA with the roads first.
Yeah, a suggestion we have as well to finish up, members, just to finish up the road program last week. We can do that and then move into Ministry of Agriculture's report, which includes RADA, 4-H, etc., in a substantial way. So, members, if you all agree, I will turn over to Permanent Secretary, Mr. Stanberry, to introduce your team and to...
Thank you, sir. Morning. With me today, immediately beside me, Ms. Lorna Green, our Principal Finance Officer, Mr. Peter Thompson, CEO RADA, Mr. Vivian Brown, Director General in the Ministry. Directly behind me, we have representatives from the Jamaica Forage Club, Dairy Development Board, the CTD in the Ministry, and the new JACRA and the Forage Clubs. Just to mention, Chairman, I am not in a position to speak to agri-parks. Agri-parks is no longer a subject in this ministry, so those questions are properly to be.
That's in economic growth now?
Yeah.
But how does that work, though? That's a
Well, if you recall...
No, but even JSIF, I don't... Wow. Yeah, but that's a... But tell me, how does that...
Yeah.
I mean, how does it not fall directly?
They're going to use
on
bill
the
houses now.
Is this a new phenomenon?
Well, that has been the case since...
2016?
Yeah, 2016.
So it was... So who is in charge? Where does it fall?
Well, remember, you know, the Agro-Invest Corporation has always had responsibility to manage the agri-parks. And that agency is now with Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
Who
Agro-Invest Corporation.
So the agricultural competitive program falls under who?
Still under us.
So how is it then?
But the
linked with
agricultural
the
competitive
agri-park?
program, agri-park, well, the program only built out agri-park and handed it over to AIC for operation. So that phase of the agriculture competitiveness programs is over. In fact, that program is being wound down now. So anybody can build an agri-park, you know. I mean, we build agri-park from EU funding under sugar, but the management, once they're built out, the management in terms of leasing lands to farmers, interacting with farmers, that has always been Agro-Invest Corporation.
So where does the extension, because to me, there's a whole process taking place of government efficiency, of cutting out some agencies, pulling things together. The agri-parks need a fair amount of management. They need supervision by RADA, and they need sort of the interaction with the farmers to come together. And they also need the supervision and knowledge of what to plant where. So it would seem to me, certainly, that to have them, while they may play an important role in economic growth, to have them in economic growth separated from agriculture really seems to be a bit dysfunctional.
Well, I mean...
Well, you really can't
in
comment.
functional terms,
Yes,
nothing much would have changed, frankly. In functional terms, nothing much would have changed. I mean, RADA still, thank you, still provides service to the agri-parks as they would to any other farmer in the country. So nothing has changed in that regard. It's just that the custodian of the agri-park lands the custodian has always been Agro-Invest Corporation. So they manage the leases and so on.
All right. So I was just saying, though, is it members we are going to have to, if we want to, so I take it that agri-parks is not here today because they would have come separate. All right. No, member.
Thank you, Chairman. P.S. I have one of the best agri-parks in the island in my constituency of South Manchester. I spoke with farmers this morning on my way up. Are they so aware that the RADA has divested itself of their management and all of that? The farmers are not aware of that.
RADA has not divested itself of the agri-park. The one you're talking about is New Forest Duff House, okay? New Forest Duff House really comprise private lands, farmers having their own private lands. What we did for New Forest Duff House through the Agriculture Competitiveness Program is to go in, put in roads, put in irrigation, etc. And we're now completing a packing house. And we're putting in facilities for global gap certification, etc. So we are completing that. RADA is still there providing extension service and advice. If there's an incidence of beta armyworm, the entire ministry is available. What we are saying in terms of the management of the park, the relationship among farmers and so on, that is agro-invest cooperation. So there are different interventions coming from different points.
I just want to, from where you sit though, PS, the rationale behind taking AIC to economic growth. And secondly, from the Ministry of Agriculture's point of view, are we maximizing on the agri-park? Because the reason why I'm asking is quite a bit of resources was pumped into the agri-parks prior to 2016. And I've been asking the question too, because I haven't been hearing about the agri-parks. And we have a report here which came to us yesterday, really, from the Ministry of Industry, Commerce and Agriculture, Fisheries, really speaking about the Agriculture Competitiveness Program, and a report on an update basically on the agri-parks. So, you know, it is a little bit where the agri-parks is solely, and what additional is AIC doing, why it would fall under economic growth and not Ministry of Agriculture? In what other area outside of the agri-park, or is there any other area outside of the agri-park that they're concentrating on?
Well, I don't comment on rationale on those things. I just make sure that the implementation and the coordination with the various ministries is there. So I can't comment on the appropriateness and where it is, but what I can tell you is that as agencies, we still work very closely together, and I don't think that the agri-park, in terms of its functionality, I don't think they have lost anything by virtue of the alignment of subjects right now.
Yeah, I think, Mr. PS, I just think that it caught most members off guard. And no, even the same thing with JSF. But as I said, you have ministries, you have portfolios. I think one of the things, members, that is open to us in these cases is in putting our report forward, is in making suggestions if we so desire, just or asking the question as to why something is where it is, because certainly the Ministry of Agriculture, or Ministry of Responsibility of Agriculture, with its mandate on its own for economic growth and its whole working together, you'd think the agri-parks would have been an important part of that. But as I said, it's something that can be asked going forward. Okay, so members, without further ado, I think, members, there's a report here, a list of the farm roads that has been put before us. I don't know, Mr. Stanbury, I don't know if there's any comments on it, and then I don't know if members have any discussions. I would ask members if we could, I know we have a tendency to get parochial, but we can speak generally if possible. But we will, to speak from knowledge is hard without getting local. But I think maybe if there's some, I think what may help us permanent secretary. It's just an idea of the general. In other words, one would think that more farm roads would be in rural areas rather than corporate areas. You know, that's how farm roads should.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
No. But are you trying? I thought your constituency was East Rural. I just made no. I said I was just saying that one would think that farm roads, you would find far more of them in rural areas than you would in corporate areas. So I'm just saying that maybe some idea of an idea of how it is done, what does it address, and then members can then open it up. I don't know whether yourself
Chairman,
or...
before you ask that question, honestly, when we look at as members of parliament, when we look at the list and the allocations that have been made, I think it gives us a pretty good idea of how they've done it. They've looked at the farm roads, they have a list at RAD and their agriculture, what was done the year before, what is done, what is happening, and it's really on the strength of the advice of their various RADA boards and people who are in the area and things. Because it's evident, when I look at the list, I can see that rural areas, there has been an even distribution and that there has been a concentration on the farm roads. And let's face it, every constituency has suffered recently with the passage of the rains that we have had, and a lot of our farm roads have even got worse than they were before. So I just want to say clearly at the outset that as a member of parliament, and I spoke with several yesterday on both sides of the aisle, and it does appear that whatever system was used to decide, it was a fair, and they are doing the best they can. Of course, there are more roads that I would like to have done. I'm sure there are other members of parliament, but Rome was not built in a day, and they're spending the money as they can in the best way they can as an agricultural.
I want to thank Member Dalrymple of giving such an excellent report for the Ministry of Agriculture.
Because I'm very pleased with them. They have worked well with the farmers, so I have to express that.
Absolutely, but members, no, let us, we don't have to jump into defense. It was meant very, no, let me just say that I was really just offering the ministry and the RAD an idea, just to give us an idea of what the intention of the farm road program is, how it helps. We all know that the farmers, if they can't get the things out, the extent to which. No, but you not let them give an overview before. I know you want to jump into the interrogation, but please, if you...
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. For a very long time, Chairman, farm roads sort of fell through the cracks. They were in parochial road managed by the municipal authorities in the classical sense, and certainly they were not major road handled by the National Works Agency. So our ministry has been pushing for a long time for some allocation to address farm roads that can make a critical difference to farmers' productivity, taking out their produce from the field, etc. So based on that kind of advocacy, we had in the 2017 budget, 2017-28 in the current budget, an allocation of 150 million, and that was augmented by a further 320 million in the supplementary estimates. So we started with 150.
That was 150, which would have been about 2 years ago?
No, man, in the current fiscal, but in the supplementary we got some additional resources.
All right.
So the farm work program as it is now $470 million. What we have sought to do, the RADA officers who would be very intimate with all the farm roads in his or her extension area would compile a list. They would physically go on the road, look what needs to be done, do estimates, etc. And alongside with that, they would have an indication of the number of farmers served by the various roads and the volume of produce in the area where the road is situated. And in having that list in consultation with the RADA officers, with members of parliament, that is how we select the roads. The minister did, in fact, yesterday, I believe, tabled in the House the list in the interest of transparency. And so this is what we have. Just to mention, though, Mr. Chairman, that this is not the end of the program. It's not the be-all and the end-all. Because in the 18-19 estimates coming up, in next year's budget that is, we have in fact put in a budget. I'm not sure yet what is the allocation. I think we'll learn that in the next 2 weeks or so. And so it is our expectation that for the next 4 to 5 years and beyond, the farm work program will be a permanent fixture in the ministry's budget. So that's what I'd like to say.
Okay. All right. Member Holness, I think you had wanted to.
I have spent a lot of time with the Ministry of Agriculture, and particularly RADA, where farm roads are concerned. PS, I've been trying to get a detailed listing of all farm roads across Jamaica. I know my own constituency list of farm roads is 31 farm roads. And when I look at parishes like St. Anne, they have 8 farm roads in all of St. Anne. 31, 8. I think we have 38 farm roads in St. Andrew. I have 31 of the 38. So, Mr. PS, as I indicated last week, when we looked at roads in general that were managed by NWA, yes, we applaud what appears to be a good distribution, because even members on the opposition bench yesterday thanked the minister for the level of distribution which appeared equitable. I would still posit that it only appears equitable because with a situation where I know that East Rural has 31 farm roads and St. Anne 9, I am still not of the view that I have had my constituents equitably served by the volume and the length of farm roads in my constituency. So I would love to get to a place where the Ministry of Agriculture and RADA can tell us what is the extent of the road network that is registered as farm roads. And so when we see the proportion that each constituency gets in terms of the repairs of their farm roads, we understand why. We would also love, and Chairman is going to go into sugar, we would also love to have an appreciation of how we determine which farm products and produce we are driving, what policies we are driving, and be able to make a connection between the farm roads that get done and the produce. One member, and I'm sure he will be taking it on when we are finished, showed me and said, look, nothing in my constituency and so much in another person in Manchester. I do Irish potato too. It's a national program. Don't my Irish potatoes need to get out? So for East Rural St. Andrew, PS, 31 farm roads, and I still have to thank God and the government for 2 measly farm roads in this last distribution. But as I said, if St. Andrew has 38 and I'm 31 of 38, I still feel that my constituents and my farmers have been slighted.
Chairman, I'm not running to the defense of agriculture, and I usually am on the same side with my colleague, but I have to beg to differ a little bit. And probably it is a matter of age and experience. I have been there before, and the PS said something that we must not lose sight of. farm roads have neither been fish nor fowl. And I think that there are still constituencies that might have farm roads that are even not yet registered. Because, for example, in South Trelawney, regardless of what my colleague has said, her constituency will never reach the stage of South Trelawney where the only thing we have is agriculture. So there are lots of farm roads that are there and a lot more that need to be done that cannot be done now, because guess what? Rome was not built in a day, and everybody, hold on colleague, everybody, even if we're in urban Jamaica, whether we're urban or we're rural, all of us represent. So all of us want a little farm road done too. So colleague, can I tell you with the experience, we have not reached, and the PS said the important thing, farm roads have neither been fish nor fowl. And therefore, for example, in South Trelawney, I'm sure I have farm roads that are not registered because we don't have CR sand, we don't have nothing, and nobody not really notice. We are strictly agriculture. But I will have to say that although I would need a lot of more roads done, I have to defer to other constituencies getting something. And I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable that you have gotten your fair share when you think of all the constituencies that are there. That is my impression. And we have to investigate, but I want to say it's one of the ministries, and rather that I want to say, and I think I have a lot of experience with them because I don't have nothing else. I'm not going to the port. I'm not going anywhere, it's agriculture. And that as a ministry, the RADA boards have worked with us, worked well with us to do the best we can. So while we investigate, I want to encourage my colleague and say to her, you're going to get more, we'll all get more. And I have more to get to, but we have to stretch it because all of us are representatives and all of us have constituents who are looking to us to do something for a road that they use. Well, take that.
Let me, I have Member Stewart, then Member Phillips, and Member Terrelam. But before, let me just make mention, because at some point I would really like, I noticed the members of the ministry are listening attentively, but they have not really engaged yet in responding. But I just want to say that the point that was made, I think, by Member Holness, I find some favor with me, because again, as I said with the NWA and Parish Council, again, I find it very interesting that Westmoreland has gotten basically what is half of the average of what some of the other constituents, other parishes are getting. And so, no, you know, yes, well, but as I said, I think it's interesting, and I think that what would be good for us is just an idea of just the sort of philosophy behind the farmer program, because we all have had issues with it. I don't know if roads are determined, which ones, how it is, how you go about it, just so that we have an idea, because it may give members a little more, we might be able to better understanding it, it would add some clarity to this. So.
Thank you, Chairman. As I said before,
and just to just say why it is that Westmoreland has so few farm roads.
All right. Just,
in clarifying the position.
Chairman, as I said before, the truth is that we are in the process of doing a comprehensive survey of all farm roads to ascertain what needs to be done to them and do estimates. The trick, though, is prioritizing which one is done first. And obviously, everyone would want theirs to be in the first phase. But apart from two things that guide us. One, what is the number of farmers that the road is served? Because I want to get the best bang for your money. and how much produce is would be moved on that road. It is also the case that there are deserving cases of roads to be rehabilitated, but the kinds of things required, like drains and significant engineering work, it doesn't make sense to spend $5 million to do something that can have an impact. So sometimes we have to take that into consideration. In the case of Westmoreland, it might appear that Westmoreland is underrepresented, but we also have to remember that Westmoreland, Clarendon, St. Thomas, Trelawney have benefited considerably from the sugar transformation, where over the last 2 years or so, we would have done probably about over 200 kilometers of road. So, there's some sort of balance there.
Well, I'm not seeing, when you look at Clarendon, and some of those that you named have gotten twice as much, which is why I'm just saying that, as I said to Member Holness last week, I'm looking forward to when the parity trips in, because Westmoreland certainly will have a lot to get as time passes. All right, so just a question though. The farm, this program, is it similar to what they're doing now with the NWA program, where if you even pick a section of road, you carry it to a certain level? There was a time where, when I first became a member of parliament, they'd come in on a farm road. They might put in 2 or 3 million, but they might marl it, oil it, or roll it, oil it, just sort of give you a basic thing, because it's not that it had a lot of traffic. It was really to allow the egress and ingress of traffic, of farm produce out of areas. But it seems to me now, there seems to be a certain amount between 5 and 6 million put on roads, except for some specific roads who have gotten more. But most of them, you have said, let's do this. And it seems that it ends up being, say, 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers. So it seems that there's just you have said, okay, it's about 5 million to do 1 kilometer road. Let's asphalt 1 kilometer and just do it. Or is it that some of these roads you are not taking to the same level? What's the sort of philosophy behind it?
So Thompson, can you speak to that, please?
Morning, House Chairman. Sometimes what we do is, when we have like 2 kilometers of road, based on the level of funding that we have, we will do, say, 1 kilometer, and then put the other part on hold until we get additional funding. So we have varying degrees of how we attempt to address the issue.
What I'm saying is, most of these roads are carried to asphalt level.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we look at...
I'm just saying that I remember years ago, sometimes they weren't taken to that level.
Right.
They were like even a single surface dressing sort of thing. It was opening up a community without a lot of traffic, I think, but it's a real farm road. But it seems to me that it's moving now to a fully asphalted, properly developed road.
Yes, we try to do that where we believe, in cases where we think that the road will last a little longer than just mile and press.
And coming back.
Right.
I'm just trying to get the philosophical basis. All right. Member Stewart.
Thank you, Chairman. Just follow up on your point also. Was there any consultation made with the elected representatives as relates to the selection of the farm road? Because that is a critical blunder that would have been made. While I am happy for the 2 roads that were selected in South Manchester, Alvey, and the Scots Pass to St. Toulis, I have a piece of road in the Marley Hill, Canoe Valley, and I think I did speak to PS about it and Mr. Thompson, where last year because of the torrential rainfall, that we had our farmers losing over 50,000 pounds of melon, which were ready for harvesting. Some works were done on the road in terms of marling the structure there. But the rains came and the farmers were reaping the melons and they were all washed away. They could not get them out to market. So I thought that that would be one of the roads that would be looked at during this period here. How were they selected? Was there any consultation, or it was just left slowly to RADA to select the roads?
I think, member, the fact that the minister brought it here yesterday and made a statement and tabled the roads was a clear indication that he intends the elected representative to know what is happening. I don't know the extent to which, I know there are consultations. I don't know if in every single case the consultation would have been as exhaustive as it could be. But by the minister bringing it here yesterday, the fact is that as far as I see it, and we have been proceeding that way, if any member looks on the list and that road is not your top priority, you can engage us, and as long as we have not yet entered into the procurement process, as long as we have not yet awarded, we have that kind of flexibility. So to change it, and it is in the interest of transparency why the minister brought it here yesterday. So we are not inflexible in that regard.
All right, Mr. Stanberg, I'm very pleased to hear that. I've heard the minister has actually said that to me, but one of the things that I think is critical, you know, I say this often, the reason we sit here is because of the adage, no taxation without representation. And the truth of the matter is that whether it's Member Holness or Member Stewart or Member Phillips or Member Terry Long, whoever, all of us here, when a road is fixed, many people will take credit for it. You know, the minister will come and open it. RADA will be there. Everybody will be there. Even the contractors. Everybody is very happy. The real difficulty is all the roads that are not fixed become the purview of the Member of Parliament. And I think it's important, this issue that you make, and I just want to emphasize it here. I think that I'm certain that all my colleagues in here will agree, and I think it's something that has been reiterated by both administrations, that there must be a level of respect for the elected representatives of the people. And I think what Member Stewart was indicating, the worst thing he could ever attempt to do is to take off a road. The community that he's taking it off of would never forgive him. But I think that it is important in having the discussion before for him to say, for there to be a consultation before that. And sometimes that consultation could be, look, we think this is important, and the Member of Parliament says, well, I think that's important. There sometimes can be some discussion because there may be technical advice that we can get that may sway that knowledge, or vice versa. There's sort of folklore. On the ground you have other things, and so there needs to be that interaction. And I think, members, one of the things that we're probably going to have to indicate, and maybe a good idea would be to say to the members, going forward, that members should interact with RADA. If we know that there's a farm work program of 100, 200 million coming up, that at least RADA has an idea of what the priorities are of the members of Parliament going in, that even if there's a difference and they intend to do something else, at least that dialogue can take place. And it also means that the technocrats can go in and look, because I think it's something where we both have to work together.
Quickly, Chair, and I mean, the issue that Member Stewart raised, I was also going to raise it, but
well, I was just about to call on you. So if
no, I know. That's why I sensed it.
Through.
I sensed it. That's
yes,
why
I
went
can see that.
No, but just to say to PS, because I was going to ask you to repeat the process again on how it is that these roads are selected, and you had mentioned I was trying to figure out if I heard right, that the extension officers make recommendations. But I wanted to also ask if so in the new dispensation going forward, and I'm happy to hear that farm roads are going to be a fixture on the budget of the Ministry of Agriculture, and rather, will parochial roads also, because there are some parochial roads that lead into just straight farming communities that are neither maintained by the parish council itself or municipal councils. And the farmers, I mean, I can use one which is Epping Forest, Canewood, in my constituency, that it has been destroyed over the years. But even though there are residents in there, it is just farming that is done in that area. That, you know, to come out or go in now is near to impossible. So will those be looked at also in the new dispensation, and where the issue or a recommendation that I would make is also when you're looking at, when you have carved out your budget for the farm roads, why, and I can speak for myself, it would be critical to get the members of parliament, elected representatives, on the front end and not the back end. We have our CDF, we have the Hope. I don't have a problem if a road is for 5 million and you come to me and I can take half of my Hope and put on that road with your money, and then put on another road, and instead of getting half a road, I get 1 or 2. You understand? So it would be good to work with us on the front end in looking at these roads when you're doing it. And as I said to my dear member here beside me, in many instances, and it goes on both sides, you see some of those extension officers more political than we who are the elected ones. Yeah? That's my experience, right? And when it comes to distribution or anything, sometimes I don't even know when any project going on with RADA. I only hear my constituent ask me, boss, how people are getting, me not get, and I don't know anything. And I tell them, you know, I don't want to get into the distribution, but it is good that because when RADA want anything, and them know say I have money in their account, them call me. But when anything I give, I don't know. Yeah? But just for us as the elected representative to be able to guide also our farmers, be it that is a program that it is for X, Y, or Z, no you can't, but just to be able to help the process. I would have preferred in instances that we are at least called in to the parish office and said X, Y, and Z, this is the program, this is what is happening. Because I find sometimes it is just done a little bit haphazard. When a farmer can call me and say, boy, I'm get 5 bags of potato, but if me have nobody want get 2 or 3 bags to because him not have land for 5 bags. You understand? I mean, you have instances like that, a coming member, right? So I would love to be called in as the elected representative, 1, on the road program in an early stage, and 2, whenever there's any program like now in Manchester where you have the potato, the program going forward. Because in many instances, RADA may give potato seeds, but not the spray and the fertilizer. If I have money, I will encourage with the fertilizer and the seed and the spray. Yeah? I mean, I have an instance where I've paid for a plow for the parish of Manchester. Yeah? $80,000 out of my CDF. And I can't even get I can't recommend nobody for plow because I'm telling me I have to group up 5 or 6 farmers together. No, them couldn't ask me not even for a pinner again. Because, no, and seriously, because we do these things to enhance the availability of machinery in the parish or so that my constituents can benefit. But others benefiting and me can't recommend nobody. But as the chairman said, at the end of the day...
member.
Chairman, just to help him, where is his RADA board? Because each of us has a RADA board. And as a member of parliament, you recommend people to sit on the board. And I'm going to be specific now. Hold on.
No, member.
You don't,
I would not be as broad in that. I think that may only pertain to some
well, then maybe, no, hold on. Let me say very straightly that maybe it is that Trelawney has been from, I have been there. And this is through both things. And I have had extension officers, listen to me now, and I say it without water in my mouth, where it is well known that they support the other side, but I have never had any problems in Trelawney.
No.
So it means therefore, therefore that you need to use Trelawney, the people that are there as a template, because they are doing very well across the board. Really?
No, I think, member, I'm just saying to you, I think the point you just made, as I said, I don't know about other members of parliament, but I didn't say never. I'm saying that recently the recommendation was not sought. Let's put it that way. And I think it's unfortunate because the input of members of parliament, as you know, is very critical. And so it's unfortunate that this has occurred. But let me just say in defense of member Phillips, you know, I think, members, one of the good things that's happening here is that there's far more awareness once things are done in this fashion. So if you look at Manchester now, I know that the Minister of Finance has a very strong farming community, but he has gotten 4 of the 6 roads, whereas member Phillips and member Bunting have gotten 0. So again, like Westmoreland, I am sure
more money, so we must finish this because those of us who don't get now go and get the next round.
Well, I'm sure Member Phillips will find it very easy to finish. Member Phillips, you'll find it very easy to finish here. The 0.
She can send one from South Trelawney to Manchester.
Right, so hold on, members,
but I mean, he'll get.
I have Member Terry Long, and then if there's no other, you want to get back on the roads. No, you were the first. You led off on the batting. All right, Member Taylor, you're ceding.
Yes, right. So just to indicate, and this is PAC. You know, it's not. This is PAC. We're not here to discuss farm and communities. This is a PAC, as I understood it. Yes, PAC, as I understand it exactly.
The second is silent.
So, right as it relates to, I looked at the budget, I looked at the 150 million and I looked at the 320 million that was further allocated. And I've heard the concerns of other members. As it relates to your strategic mapping, right, and the development, rehabilitation, maintenance of these farm roads, what I wanted to find out is, as a part of your strategic planning, so to speak, have you indicated that, for example, a road might last 7 to 10 years, but if there is a systematic maintenance program going on for each road, it would cost less in the long run. So if you've, say for example, these wonderful roads that you're giving to these constituents, you know, so you're doing 2 roads in, let's say, East Rural, St. Andrew. These 2 roads cost, let's say, $8 million or $14 million, right? Have you factored in to say, for example, as a part of strategic planning, these 2 roads are expected to last 10 years. But when you think about wear and tear, heavy-duty equipment tractor might go up there, etc., right? When you think about these things, do you say, well, do we maintain the road? Do we have like a maintenance program every 2 years in between the 10 years to might extend it? So in the long run, you don't have to be like spending far more money on these roads. Is that a part of it, the general maintenance, so that in the long road we spend less money to be building or rehabilitating more roads?
Chairman, what the members have said is rational and logical. Unfortunately, that is not the reality. We have fought long and hard to be able to get a discrete allocation for farm roads, just to rehabilitate. I think it's a good beginning, and I have listened carefully to all the interventions from Member Phillips and Member Terrelong, and I think that we'll have to take those things on board as we solidified and concretize this program to be a permanent one. The truth is that, though, my own view, personally, not the ministry's, is that we might need to come to a point where we frankly stop distinguishing between roads, whether farm roads or parochial roads or NWA roads. And just because our interest in the thing is that we need the roads for our farmers to be able to take out their produce. But in the strictest sense of the road, of the word, maintenance of road would not be our core responsibility. So I think at the policy level, we might have to look on things in a more integrated way.
You could also look at the end of the works, look at handing over these roads to either the NWA or the Parish Council for maintenance, because they have an ongoing maintenance program. And that is what is being done in, for example, JCF. When JCF would have repaired a road, they normally hand it over to the agency that has a ongoing maintenance program. So I think that is how we could, one of the ways that we could look at approaching, the concern that was raised by Member Terrelong.
That into account, but as I said at the start, I'm going to repeat that many of these roads that we call farm roads are in fact roads that are not even owned by the municipal authority. Never mind to hand them over.
But I can tell you, as a former mayor, the municipal authority will not hesitate to take over a road, once it is in good condition. The problem you have in taking over is that they don't want to take over if the road is bad, because they don't have the resources to fix them. But if you give them a good road, they will take it. I've had that experience where we take over several roads.
We'll certainly have this discussion, because as I said, for us, this farm road program is not a one-off. We intend to have a program over the medium term, so we'll engage those discussions.
Member, I think that given the frequency with which the parish council roads are being fixed, that you may be advised to try and move your parish council roads to farm roads rather than the other way around, because it seems like they're doing more to fix the roads than the funding from the parish councils. All right, members, I think you wanted.
One last thing, PS. I made a visit to JCF yesterday. They're actually going through the process now of completing some of the farm roads. I was lucky enough to have one of the roads that is critical to me, supports about 30% of our coffee industry, being accepted as a project. Sadly, I think the amount, the grant, caps out somewhere in the region of $75,600,000 US, which would mean we would need additional resources to complete said road. Gratefully.
Hold on. Repeat that, what you just said?
Yes, the grant for each road caps out, depending on the cost of your road, at $600,000 US. So JCF has such a program, million. 70 to 74 million based on the exchange rate, about 74, 75 million. And it is for farm roads that they are focusing on. So just to put it out there for other members of parliament who have farm roads that they need to focus on. I know in the past JSIF used to be doing...
on one road, or
that is on one road. The road for me actually needs approximately 149 million. It's from Robertsfield to Westphalia. I currently have 8 million here, which I will only be able to use to start preparing the road. So for Member Terry Long, I'm not sure if we appreciate that these funds that we're seeing here from the Ministry of Agriculture are not able to put any of the roads in a position to be able to turn over to anybody. These funding can barely grade the farm roads and probably shingle or marl them. So this is like a real drop in the bucket in terms of what is required for us to be able to get the farm roads to any place of seriously good use. This is basically the maintenance program for the farm roads as we have it. I'm not sure what the budget had looked like last year. I'm not sure where we're going this year. But I would love to ask PS if we can incorporate JSIF and the funding that they're able to procure through grants and merge that with what we can get from the Ministry of Agriculture and see to, and I agree with Member Phillips' point as well, to see where we can stop looking at a road in its entirety or partially based on the funding that we're able to get now, and join up government in such a way that if we are able to get some from CDF, some from JSIF, some from RADA, some from TEF, we are able to pull together and complete a road to a satisfactory extent. And in saying that, I'll be asking for help with Robertsfield to Westphalia, since we have been able to secure some funding elsewhere.
All right. All right. Members, I think we have had a fulsome discussion on the road program. So if we may move on. There had been a report, I think the report had RADA as a substantive issue. I don't know if there are any questions of RADA in of itself, or we could move on to the sugar.
Sir Thompson, the re-extension services, is there any plan or resources in the upcoming budget in being able to expand it, especially farmers to extension officer, because your ratio is a little bit big compared to what is needed. Is there, are we looking at that in the upcoming financial year? And secondly, the well, answer that first.
Okay. You might have heard the recommendation was made to Minister Samoda to see how much we could address the ratio of extension officer to farmers, and we have done something in the budget to see how we can address that. We have recognized the weaknesses, because one of the things that we have found out is that the number of farmers unregistered is growing. We are seeing new farmers coming into agriculture. So the ratio is getting wider, and we recognize that we need to have, if we need to push production beyond a certain level, then we have to narrow the ratio. Right now it's approximately one extension officer to 2,000 farmers, which is really challenging for us.
And the reason why I'm asking too is because there's the method of registering farmers.
Right.
Especially when us as members of parliament are assisting farmers. If they're not registered, they can't get the benefit of what. But what I've found is that, and I encourage it to, because the process now that an extension officer or an officer from RADA has to go to that farm or farmer to ensure that what he said he's farming is so. But I am finding that because of the ratio or the lack of, it is taking up to 6-8 weeks before an extension officer reaches to that farmer. So, you know.
Yeah, we recognize the challenge that where that is concerned. And also, there are some farmers, by the definition of a farmer, would not meet that criteria. So we open up a system in ABIS to have those farmers like those with 50 chickens and so forth, do temporary registration for them. So we have started that.
Chairman. Yes, Chairman, through you to PS and perhaps to Mr. Thompson. There appears to be a little strained relationship on the ground as it relates to the PMOs and the JAS. That one seems to be getting a little more attention than the other. What is happening with those two organizations that would fall under the Ministry of Agriculture, the Jamaica Agricultural Society and the Productive Marketing Organization, the PMO?
Chairman, there really ought not to be any tension on the ground. Any group of farmers is free to organize themselves in whatever organization. RADA is duty bound to service any group of farmers, be it JS or PMO, or individual farmers who come to RADA, or any other configuration of farmers. We live in a free society, so there ought not to be, frankly, any strain. The policy of the ministry is that we service everybody.
Chairman, I have to agree with PS. One of the observations I've had, and it may well be because I live very close to the RADA office in Kingston and St. Andrew, I get to spend enough time visiting, is that in the allocation that is given to RADA, if I see 200 bags of potatoes come, and they say that's for East Rural, they tell me straight, 100 bags, the Member of Parliament, with the recommendation from the extension officers, that's it. But 100 bag, RADA, through their extension officers alone, distribute to all the farming groups across the constituency. And I've actually observed that in play in my own constituency in a very equitable way, and I have to congratulate you for that.
PS. No. I laugh because your answer is more than as it is. What I'm happy about is at the beginning of, or in 2016, where you had farm groups within, and I can speak of Northwest Manchester, because I raised the issue at this committee, and I raised it in the House itself, where monies were being given directly to these PMOs. And when I asked for the list, I saw where I no longer had any JS groups. There were now PMO/JS groups, right? But monies were being given to these PMOs directly from RADA or the ministry itself. And I'm happy that I have not heard anything more of it, because it was not being done equitably across the board with the amount of PMOs I saw registered in my constituency. And it was not being done in a way that would have enhanced productivity. Because for me, to give a PMO group $100,000 and tell them to buy chicken with 30 members in the group, you and I know that not going a far away. And them same one going to end up at my constituency office asking for more chicken after them eat the 50 chickens what they got. And it's a fact. 50 chickens for an individual is more for personal consumption than to turnover. That is a given. No, because after rat eat 10 out of it,
maybe you need to engage your groups a little more, get a little more engaged, because, hold on, if you go to the meetings, hold on, I just want to, member, I'm sorry, member, if you go to the meetings, you know, and they have 100,000, then you guide them along and say so and so and engage them.
But member, with all due respect, I am speaking about an incident, as I said before. I have not seen it happen of late, but there were groups in my constituency that got monies, which I only knew about it when I asked for a report from the ministry through RADA, right? This is after the money has been given to. You have 30-odd groups registered in Northwest Manchester, and you have 3 groups getting more than 200,000 at different stage. So I'm just saying that I am hoping that I don't see that recurrence again, because it never encouraged production within the wider scale of what RADA or what it is actually supposed to be.
Member Phillips, no, please. I would just say that that was an unfortunate period in time, and the minister did give us an assurance that it would not reoccur. So I am happy to say that to date we have not seen it reoccur.
Can I add something now, Chairman?
Yes.
I want to add something to Member Phillips. I picked up something in his discourse, and I noticed Member Dalrymple's experience is different. Mine is different. Coming out of that, we have been able to become very involved with going down to RADA, trying to find out when the national programs will be launched, getting an idea as to what has been allocated. I would want to recommend that something is done in ensuring, if it is not, I'm trying to figure out how we always know. I think we must just walk behind RADA a lot, but I am not having that problem. I find that the extension officers are easy to deal with, easy to talk to. They communicate with us. The RADA Parish Office for Kingston and St. Andrew communicate when they're doing a national program. They tell us, you know, how they have split whatever they're allocating, what you are going to get. And it actually gives me the opportunity to be able to work with the farm groups that we have in the constituency. We're actually able to get involved in the training, even when RADA is doing training or when some of the suppliers are doing training. So I feel for me, I'm benefiting from a deep integration, and it is a comfortable process. I'm not sure how it is managed across the country, so I think we need to look back at that to make sure that in all the parishes, the members of parliament are pulled in and interacting with the farm groups, with RADA, and being comfortable that they appreciate what is happening, when it is happening, how the distributions are done, even if it is that they don't get personally involved in the distributions.
Member Holly, I want to enjoin something. Look, I have found certainly on a program I'm working on, just trying to do something that can counter climate change, and we're working on a program, and I've gotten a lot of help from RADA in pulling it together, because it's a technical project. I like the idea of it. It was brought by an extension officer, and we have tried to push it, and it's getting there. Some of these projects take a long time, but there's something I think that would be of interest. One of the things that we discuss a lot is the fact that as a country we import a lot, and there must be some, we talk about import substitution, we talk about that sort of strategic idea. There was a time when persons would come down, they came to Westmoreland and said, okay, everybody plant pepper. Or they might go somewhere else and say, well, you need to plant sweet pepper or something else. But I think what would be important or interesting to all of us as members of parliament is the coordinated program that RADA and the Ministry of Agriculture should be or is working on deal with that sort of import substitution, which goes back to the whole issue of the tourism industry and the linkages. Mr. Stanbury, you sat on the Linkages Council, certainly might still be there, but from the inception when I formed it, you were a member. And one of the things is that we see the opportunities, and yet I don't think that we have been able to make as large a dent in it as we would want to. And what you're really looking at is how can we coordinate the planting of what is needed for that industry, or to stem import substitution for other areas. What's been done that really deals with getting that to the farmers. And again, this was an important part of those, of the what do you call them, the agri-parks. So now that the agri-parks are not there, I just want to know what is happening with that program that should be aggressively pushed by the ministry in terms of policy and rather on the ground to get import substitution, and really that there should be some almost monthly or quarterly report that goes to members of parliament and farmers to guide them to keep us on that direction, because it's the only way that we're really going to break the back and create some real economic growth. You could give us an idea of where that program stands now?
Thank you very much. We have been very strategic in terms of the programs that we formulate and support. We are very conscious of our food import bill. It has been coming down. Probably 10 years ago, it was just about $1 billion US. Now it's more 800 and odd. So we have made some inroads. What we do is to dissect the food import bill and determine what elements of that bill in terms of produce we can grow in Jamaica fairly competitive, and that we can grow based on our agro-climatic conditions. It is from that analysis why we started with Irish potato, because we were convinced at the time that we could grow Irish potato competitively, and we do spend quite a bit. That program has been going on quite nicely. We next took on onion, because we're spending quite a bit of money on onion, and we can in fact grow onion here competitively. In recent times, in consultation with the tourism industry, because quite apart from the Linkage Council, or in addition to the Linkage Council, we do, Minister Samod and the team, we meet quarterly with the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association. And in those discussions, it emerged, for instance, that strawberry is an item that is demanded. And it really, they said to us very frankly, it don't even make any sense to import it, because once it gets here, it doesn't last very long. So on the basis of that, we have formulated a strawberry program. Not that strawberry is entirely new to us. It's growing in the hills of St. Andrew. There was a huge strawberry program in South Carolina at one time, for instance. So we are going back there. And we have taken a very clinical approach to the whole thing. So we look at the entire value chain, from the seedlings to the agronomic practices, to the input suppliers, to the marketing. And we have determined that the greatest gap in that value chain where government can make a contribution is in the area of clean planting material.
In what?
Clean planted material. Because you don't want to plant anything that is disease-riddled and so on. So we have formulated a multidisciplinary team, put together a team drawn from RADA, the Ministry's Research and Development Division, Plan Quarantine, and we have in fact sent people to New Orleans, and we have now in the process of forging alliance with those people to be able to supply us with clean planting material. We have identified farmers in the agroclimatic zone that this crop can be grown. We have mobilized in one instance, we have worked with one member of parliament, which is right here in this room today. And we have set targets, and we're going to support that program. We're looking at other programs, for example, everybody talk now about the MD2 pineapple, which is sweeter, which is better for processing because it doesn't have the pricks and
Where
things.
does that grow? In the hills or on the flat?
All over. All over.
Yeah, but isn't it, if it's too high, it gets sour?
No. So that MD2 explosion was introduced by the Ministry of Agriculture and doing fairly well, and will continue to do so. Again, we'll look at things like dairy. We're trying to make a comeback with dairy because we do spend quite a bit of money on milk products. And from a nutritional standpoint, we think that it is strategic that we have a good source of protein for our children. And so we are reviving our dairy. So the point I'm making is that the crops we have selected for development is based on analysis of our imports and et cetera, et cetera.
But Mr. Stanberry, the difficulty, and having been kind of in the middle of this, and you take an area like strawberry, I think the potential for it is phenomenal. But here is the problem. If you don't have some arrangement, say with an agro-park as well, if it is all individual farmers, what inevitably happens is that everybody tends to plant at about the same time. Then at the end of the day, you get a crop, the price drops, then the price comes up, and as you said, in the past we have had programs, especially with strawberries. We have had these programs in the hills, and then it dies out after a while. The point is that what the purchasers have really said to us, they want a quality, they want a price that is within the range that they can deal with, but they need consistency. And the point I'm trying to make is, how do you pull that together, especially when you're dealing with a multiple of smaller farmers, given the volume that you would need to be able to use it as an import substitution. I think that is I think that's the important part of really making it work.
Well, that's exactly the approach we're taking, Chairman. The truth is that because of this specificity in relation to microclimate that is required for this crop, is not something that lends itself to grow in the existing agri-parks. So we have carefully selected farmers in those zones where it can grow. And it's a well-coordinated program. We provide them with not only with the planting material, but with this necessary technical advice. And what we are seeking to do is to link them directly with contracts with the end users and so on. So it's pretty coordinated, Chairman.
Which is what I wanted to sort of.
Chairman, in South Trelawney, may I just ask directly, because I think years ago as a young attorney, which is years, 30-odd years ago, the most successful, I think, strawberry operation was in an area called Rock Spring in South Trelawney. And I know at the time, and he's still alive, Brasco Lee had a lot of input in it. He has a lot of knowledge. I want to know, just ask a direct question because South Trelawney comes first. Has anything been done? Has any farmer in South Trelawney been contacted, or is there any work being done by the ministry with people in South Trelawney? Can I have a direct answer?
We are at the what you call now the beginning stage of developing the program.
Okay.
We know of South Trelawney.
Yes, and there is Brasco Lee that is alive, and he was there. I am telling you, I used to go to court, and when we are finished, Chairman, we could go and buy 3 trays of the nicest strawberries from South Trelawney. So, and what the PS said is true. Because of the climate, you have to be careful and not just put it anywhere at all and not waste. Yes, I want to.
Hold this, I think you want to.
Yes, I think as it relates to the strawberries grown in East Rural St. Andrew, I should put it on the table. Substantial portion of that funds did not come from the Ministry of Agriculture, but from CDF funds, because we believed in the concept of having niche products for our farmers that are of high value. And we launched what we called at the time, and continue to use, our Agri-Hope program for East Rural St. Andrew. The farmers have done well. We have asked rather to audit them. They could still have been better, but we are looking forward now to the plans of the government to launch more of a national program, which would include Trelawney and areas of Manchester that grow strawberry. The variety that we got was the festival variety coming out of a university in Florida. And it is supposed to be a far more tropical variety. I believe we would be able to do better using the knowledge we have gleaned, and I'm happy, PS, you have said that you have persons going to New Orleans to delve further.
Is there a new variety that you're coming with?
They have gone there. I have not gotten the report, but from what one of my team members told me, is that they are looking at about 3 different tropical varieties. Which,
I've heard there might be some.
Yeah. What you intimated, Chairman, I'll tell you, I'm very happy for this particular product, because the hotels indicated to us that they are nowhere near able to import the volume of strawberries that they need.
Absolutely.
They actually only have approximately 1 day supply. So we are in a unique position that if we're able to push this particular product, I have 2 constituents. I tell you, one of the young men, when he called me, he said, Mrs. Holness, you have turned me from a boy into a man. I'm making money. 21-year-old farmer and doing very, very well. So when you look at the Ministry of Tourism and their assessment of the profitability of growing berries, it is phenomenally profitable. And I have noticed RADA has one extension officer paying significant attention to understanding that particular product. So, Ministry of Agriculture, RADA, I am depending on you to ensure that strawberry and berries remain a product that you focus on and get us to a place where we can substitute for the imports.
The pineapples, they grow almost anywhere? Or is there a specific?
Chairman, it can grow all over the island. What is peculiar about this particular variety is that it requires deep attention. It's something like pepper. You have to fertilize on time. You have to, encourage all the cultural practices.
You don't.
Right. Where we have been looking at Jamaica producers who have been doing over 200 hectares over in St. Mary.
Wow.
And they are making a lot of money, but it seems as if we need to explore other areas to get more farmers involved. One of the things, though, Chairman, is that we have to import the suckers, and this is challenging because each sucker is fetching between $50 and $70 per sucker. Okay, so it can be expensive. So we might have to start a pilot project with the ministry and then gradually take it from there.
All right, members, if we may, I'd like to move on from rather it's 1:45. I think we can move through some of the other stuff quickly. Is the sugar transformation is here? Oh, it's you. All right, excellent. Just as a, well, could you give me an idea of where are we at with sugar transformation? Because I'm a little concerned and confused, being one of the persons involved in sugar. I don't know.
As you know, Chairman, the sugar transformation program was conceived as a response to the withdrawal of the concessionary marketing arrangement we had for sugar in Europe. The EU was forced to reform its sugar regime, which translated in a price cut from that market. It's no longer attractive to ship bulk sugar to Europe because the prices in Europe are now tending towards the world market price, which is not sufficiently remunerative for a country like Jamaica, which is a high producer. So the program has two objectives, really. One was to restructure the industry to make it more productive and profitable. And the strategy used to achieve that was the privatization of government holdings at the time, which was about 70%. We have in fact privatized, and we have met all the attendant costs relating to privatization in terms of redundancy of workers. However, unfortunately, the figures speak for themselves. The increase in production and productivity that we hope would have been achieved by privatization has not been realized. So that was one phase. The second phase was to deal finally with the legacy of social issues within the sugar industry, particularly in the surrounding sugar-dependent communities. And for that, we formulated what we call a Sugar Area Development Program, which has a number of interventions, namely fixing roads within sugar-dependent areas, relate to housing development, relates to social infrastructure such as sporting facilities, schools, clinics, to ensure that those people who are so heavily dependent on the estates which used to provide these services can now access these services from other sources. It involves assisting people who would have been laid off or made redundant to channel them into alternative enterprises and livelihoods, etc. And there was a specific program agreed with the EU under what we call a number of financing agreements. The program is literally in its last year, so at the end of this year, that program would have ended. We have a table here in the thing that we submitted to the committee. In terms of the economic results and privatization, the figures speak for themselves. The results have not been good. Production, as the level of production, frankly, is lower than before privatization. We still work with the new owners of the privatized entities to help to boost production. As you know, at one point, the government has to step back in temporarily to run Money Musk. Happily, the Pan-Caribbean, owned by the Chinese company Complant, has now come back, and as we speak, they are preparing the Money Musk factory for operation this crop, so the government doesn't have to spend that amount of money to run the crop. On the social side, I think the results have been commendable. We have in the last financing, the final financing agreement, satisfied every single indicator, targets that we agreed with the EU in terms of houses to be delivered, in terms of kilometers of roads rehabilitated, in terms of the number of social infrastructure that we have overhauled, rehabilitated or delivered, etc. And the details are there, Chairman.
The reason I ask the question is that there, well, certainly I can speak to one social program, even in my constituency, which was to have been completed 2.5 years ago. That just seems to be delaying part of the a program that was dealing with some sports issues in some of the schools. I think I'd spoken to you about it, but part of the problem is it just lags on and just doesn't seem to come.
Well, it's not really a delay now. The truth is that we agreed a specific program with the EU for which we are monitored, and the extent to which we are able to deliver on those targets is the extent to which the EU puts the money in the consolidated fund, because this is what we call a budget support program. What has happened, Chairman, is that over and above that particular program, we have had requests for other things like the high school program. But we had to deal first with the program agreed with the EU, because that is what we are being marked on. So some of the things we took on, like some of the sporting facilities, were not really part of that program, but we did in fact deliver a few, like in Devlin, etc. So what we are hoping is that now that we have come to the end of the program, the resources which remain will hand over now to Sports Development Foundation, that they can carry on that outside of the agreed program. Well, so all is not lost in that regard.
Yeah, I think because part of the problem you have, some of these programs, you get locked in, and then you have community meetings, have all these discussions year and year and year, and no program. So, but I don't want to get too parochial on it. I can speak to you about it, but I think the upshot of what you're saying is that this program is winding up this year.
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. Okay. Member Stewart?
Thank you, Chairman. Through you to the PS, I was just asking, based on the fact that we have so many acreage that is underutilized as it relates to sugar, when we, in our heyday, when we had lands being planted out, is there a future for sugar in Jamaica?
Yes, there is. The truth is that we now have to tailor the sugar industry to satisfy the markets that really make money, right? So we have a 70,000 tons per annum consumption, and certainly for the last 4 or 5 years, all the sugar we consume in Jamaica are in fact from local production. There was a time when the market,
repeat that statement.
For the last 4 to 5 years, all the sugar we consume in terms of brown sugar has been from local production. There was a time when the EU market was so lucrative that would send all our local production to meet our quota on the Lome and Cotonou agreement, and then we'll buy cheap world market sugar for local consumption. That is no longer the case. So right now the local market is really the most lucrative part of it, and we are satisfying that. That's one. Two, in December 2016, the minister promulgated some new standards for packaged sugar and labeling, and that has made a significant difference, because the differential in price between bulk sugar that the supermarket would buy from the factory and wrap in some plastic bag behind the counter. And some of the packages have 15 ounces, some 15.5, some 16. We have done away with that and now make it mandatory that there are labeling and packaging standard. That added a new layer of economic activity where people have now come in the industry as packers so that they can manufacture the sugar in 1 pound, 2 pound, 1 kilogram size. And that has also facilitated the export of our sugar in packages to the CARICOM. Certainly the factory in St. Thomas is doing very well with that. And the price in CARICOM much more lucrative than we would have sent it to Europe. As we speak, next door at the JMA, the sugar industry is having consultations with the local manufacturing industry with respect to the use of what we call plantation-wide sugar. It's not refined sugar, it's somewhere halfway between refined and raw sugar. But it turns out that probably 90% of the food, the manufactured food, like soft drinks and so on, biscuits, confectionery and so on, can in fact use plantation-wide. So they are consulting with the JMA to see the extent to which our local manufacturers will use plantation-wide rather than importing refined sugar. And if we can find a mix, a balance, a price point that will satisfy the manufacturers and the sugar industry, then that would really augur well for the sugar industry. So the long and short, what we are saying is that the sugar industry can survive if we now focus on the local market and on the CARICOM market. And two, if we really activate, and this was in the plan, but for some reason we have not, the guys in the sector have not fully come on board, but the whole business of cogeneration, the very bagasse which is a byproduct, rather than throwing it away and causing a dust nuisance, can in fact be used to generate electricity. And it does two things. One, it reduces your own cost of production in the sense of cheaper energy. And two, the excess can be sold to the grid. Jamaica also has an E10 mandate, and we can use the sugar, the cane juice to make ethanol that can satisfy that mandate. We now have to look on what else needs to be done to sort of incentivize that process so that the ethanol we use in our motor vehicles are from our sugar industry and not ethanol imported from Brazil, etc. So I think that there is a chance, but we have to diversify and we have to look more in the local market.
Just as a matter of interest, what percentage of the sugar utilized in Jamaica is brown and what percentage is white? In other words, how much do we import of white sugar?
So the local consumption for brown sugar, it is 60 to 70,000 tons per annum, and for refined, it's about 60, I think. So
same amount? That amount?
Yeah.
Now that is used for what?
The refined sugar is used for the manufacturing of soft drinks, fruit juices, baked products, etc.
So you're saying, and how much brown sugar do we produce per year? No.
Mr. Callan, what was the production last year, please?
Chairman, the production of the local sugar industry last year was 89,000 tons.
So you're saying that we basically, your point is we produce enough sugar really to take care of the local market mostly. Now, we don't make any white sugar at all?
No, not right now. There was a time when we used to do refined sugar. I don't know what happened. We have stopped. But as I said, the thinking now of the industry is to do what we call plantation white, which is not the fully refined, but it can be used for manufacturing.
How is this sugar imported? How is it imported? The refined sugar?
The refined sugar is imported under license. The manufacturers who use the refined sugar would have to get a license to import it. And it is strictly monitored because it comes in duty-free as an input in the manufacturing process. And part of the rationale for promulgating new labeling standards and packaging standards was to sort of plug and discourage any temptation to leak that duty-free sugar into the retail trade.
So all of this sugar that's imported, refined, is imported by specific manufacturers? And only,
yes, Chairman. Yeah.
And it is so it would be like, as they say, like a Campari or a bigger, or, I mean, soft drink.
Yeah, the bigger manufacturers, they would, yeah.
Yeah. Who would know who gets these licenses? Where are these licenses? Are they, is it just the ministry
Isn't the trade board? Yeah, the trade board.
They issue the licenses?
That's right.
Also, it's not the Ministry of...
No, the trade board issues the well, it's not the same ministry, fortunately.
No, meaning, yes.
The trade board issues the license.
And you say 60,000.
Thereabouts.
And about how many people would you say import this? Would it be 10? Would it be 100? I mean, just because, as you said, it has.
Do you know, Mr. Callan? About 20-25 manufacturers, we are told.
Those are the persons who can manufacture. Those are total that manufacture.
About 20-25 of them will import for manufacturing purposes.
Yeah, but that's the only reason you have for manufacturing, for importing it.
Largely so, because the consumption of refined sugar at the wholesale level, the retail, is pretty small.
What about, say, the hotel sector, etc.?
Well, for the hotel sector, one of the good things is that we now have some of our sugar manufacturers, processors, now embracing the whole business of packaging and being able to...
I would suggest they do mostly the brown, but I'm just saying for the wine.
The brown. Well, the white would have to be imported.
Straight, and that
but
would
the
be
brown
done.
sugar, happily we have in our local brown sugar
but
into
then
the
how
hotels.
Would that be imported?
In the sachets. We have a few entities that import for the retail trade, but the volumes are not great because the duty is fairly high. I think JCPS would have been one of them and a few others.
Okay. Member, hold on.
Chairman, I know you're speaking about importation of sugar and so on. I want to pose a question, and I'm sure the answer is not here, but if we could be supplied this, because I know that the Ministry of Agriculture spans the entire market and issues licenses, permits for a whole range of imports.
Commodity, you're talking about commodities mostly.
Chicken back,
yes.
Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to get detailed listings of those permits that are granted, what's the quota, and to whom, so that we can, yes, for example, all the products that require permits and how these licenses are issued. If we could get a summation of those, I think that would help us. Because we do get the complaints about glut and oversupply, undersupply. I think the committee would do well if we have an understanding as to the real market situation out there.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right, members, I don't know if there's Member Campbell.
There's the Trelawney sugar project. Could you just tell me what were the terms of that divestment? Because I'm not sure what is happening with Trelawney's sugar.
I'm going to speak general because I wouldn't have the specifics here. But the Trelawney Sugar Company, which itself was an amalgamation of Long Pond and Handem, was divested in 2009 to Everglades Farms Limited. The divestment involved the lease of the cane lands. They were not sold, and that would be, I think, about 8,000 hectares thereabout, and the sale of the factory and the lands immediately around the factory, that is Long Pond, as well as the distillery in Hamden. And I think the Great House was also, the Hamden Great House was also leased. Those were the terms, basically.
Those 8,000 acres or hectares, are they under production presently?
Not in full, but at the same time, when they were leased to the Everglades farm, the entire 8,000 was not also occupied by sugar, to be frank.
Are you presently collecting on the lease for those 8,000 hectares?
There have been some lapses in the payment of the lease.
The question, are they up to date in the payment?
No.
What is it that you're doing in relation to those payments?
Well, I don't want to comment too much on it because we have engaged a process, and SCJ Holdings, which is the government's custodian of those lands, are now in the process of arbitration with Everglades Farm Limited in respect of a number of outstanding matters, including the leases. So in that regard, I wouldn't want to be to say too much about that.
All right, members, we don't want to keep the Ministry of Agriculture from the important work that they do. So I don't know if there's no further questions. Pierce, I want to thank you and your team for coming today. I think you all were very informative, and I think members, especially Member Dalrymple, who has left, is obviously advocated well on your behalf. But thank you for coming, and thanks for the help. And members, so we have some all right, members. Members, after the next ministry, there was an indication we were going to see follow through with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. There were some things such as UDC, which we have never seen. Port Authority, I think, is there. JAMPRO. What we will do, land, I think NHT, there's a whole series of things that because of the ministry strict, because we've been seeing them, I suppose we could throw agro-parks into it now that we know where they are. And we do have this information that we have requested from the Ministry of Finance and from the Ministry of National Security. So what I would suggest, we had indicated next week that we would not meet. We're meeting 3 weeks out of the month to allow the other committees, and then when we meet week after next, we will take the questions we got from national security and finance, and we will go to economic growth and job creation. All right, members?
Yes, just to be clear, Chairman, and I agree with you that we wouldn't meet next week. And the following week would be the 14th, which is a public holiday.
Oh, no. Well, yes, that's right.
And after that, we won't be meeting because the new parliamentary year will be commencing.
Well, members, if that is the case, let me, if that is the case, make a suggestion. We're not gone through it. It makes no sense engage in economic growth and job creation if you're not going to be able to follow through, because areas like UDC and so forth may be difficult. So after the budget, maybe we can go straight there. What I will do is have the clerk, the information we requested. If we get a response, I will indicate to members, and if needs be, we could have a truncated meeting next week to deal with it if it is so necessary. If it is not, then we would adjourn till such time, being that we are not going to be able to meet. When budget starts, we won't be able to meet. So what I'll do is have the clerk indicate to us by Friday or Monday. We'll get back to members and indicate. All right, members, on that note, thank you, and meeting is now adjourned.
Hey, I'm Matthew Gore, race car driver from Mobay. I'm here to talk about road safety in Jamaica today, and I would like to carry you to Hopewell and to Great River, which have been some accident hotspots recently. So come on, let's go. Okay, we're here at Great River, which is one of Mobay's hot accident spots. And one of the main reasons for this is because of speeding, going too fast. And there's a lot of straights and sudden corners that come up, like right now. So remember, guys, we're not, race car drivers on the road. You have to do the speed limit and be safe. So just always remember to be safe.
What happened, Tristan?
Mommy, what is an activate?
Activate? Where you hear that word?
A lady was on the TV and she said she is a children's activate.
Oh, the advocate.
That's what I said.
Okay, the children's advocate is the